Historically, I have made my position very, very, very clear regarding putting propellers on ground-based vehicles. Namely, don't actually do that, mostly because of reasons of common sense and safety. I think it's a fair thing not to do, and yet, at least 5 times throughout history, people have attempted to do this with locomotives. That's a convenient number for me, because it means I can make a whole list about all 5 times where this was done, and why every single time was a failure. I didn't put these in order in terms of usefulness or anything like that. I just put them in chronological order. So, we're gonna start at the first known attempt and stop at the last. The Aerowagon from 1917. This was a Russian invention, dubbed an experimental high-speed rail car that, yes, had a propeller. And, by high-speed railcar standards, this is really an impressive beast, in that it's really just a shack on wheels, in both practice and appearance. It was invented by a man named Valerian Abakovsky, who was a Soviet engineer from Latvia. It was, in fairness, extremely fast, capable of 140 kilometers per hour, or 87 miles per hour, and it was tested for about 4 years, until, well, the inevitable occurred. On the 24th of July, 1921, a group of delegates to the first Congress of the Profintern actually took the Aerowagon from Moscow to the Tula collieries to meet with local miners and to visit an arms factory. Abakovsky himself was aboard that day, and while they successfully arrived in Tula, on their way back to Moscow, the Aerowagon derailed, which wound up killing 7 people, including Abakovsky. The Aerowagon was not rebuilt, and its remains were scrapped. The Dringos Prop-Locomotive. This one was built in 1919, and looks very much like the Aerowagon in terms of the whole shack idea. But this was literally built off of an actually pre-existing freight car. The designers attached 2 aircraft engines and props to either side of the thing to make it easier for it to go in both directions, which is a good idea, I guess, in terms of making that happen, but you literally just strap 2 propellers to a freight car. That's what this is. The design was patented by Dr. Otto Steinitz and assembled under license by the Luftfahrt Company. It made its first successful test run on May 11th, 1919, carrying about 40 people in total, which included various government railway officials and parliament members. The actual top speed of this thing isn't quite clear, as they only sustained a speed on the test run of 60 miles per hour, which wasn't bad, and they could have gone faster, but there were concerns about the prototype, given its shabby nature, as being, literally a freight car, and the fact that the braking system, well, wasn't built for such high speeds. So they decided to play it on the safe side, which, to be fair, was a smart idea, even if the entire concept wasn't. Details are scant as to the prototype's fate, but since these types of locomotives did not at all become prevalent, it's pretty obvious the design was not repeated, likely owed to the fact that you have giant spinning blades right next to people. Why do you think this is a good idea? Why does anybody think this is a good idea? I mean, I'm gonna be saying this a lot because it's a problem with pretty much all of these, but seriously, why on earth would you believe that putting what is, in effect, a buzzsaw next to a passenger platform could result in anything other than horrific gore? Like, honestly, I'm guessing that was probably what happened with this, but it was 1919 in Germany as well, and their economy was in shambles, so I doubt they even had the money to invest in something weird like this. especially when safety issues were likely brought up. The Bennie Railplane. This admittedly is probably the smartest design when it comes to sticking a propeller on a locomotive, because the railplane was meant to operate on an elevated track, therefore making it a lot safer when it came to not hitting people with a propeller. It was invented by George Bennie and patented in 1921, though he didn't wind up building the prototype until 1929. And it operated along a stretch of track right off the Glasgow and Millingavie Junction Railway. Technically, this would count as a monorail, as the primary rail was above it, though it did have stabilizing guide rails below. So I'm sure some monorail fans will correct me and be like, well, technically, listen, just go with it. It was an elevated rail line. Whether it's a monorail or not, I'm not going to get into details on that. But it was designed to operate over existing lines, which again was a clever decision because that meant space was already allocated for lines being there. You just put them over the existing tracks, and therefore making a clear separation between faster passenger traffic and slower freight trains, which would operate on conventional rails. Bennie thought that the final version should be able to travel about 120 miles per hour, 193 kilometers per hour, which would have been really fast for those times. And it could also be used to move mail and perishable goods that needed to get to their destinations faster. There was interest all over the world, in fact. He got international attention, but Bennie just couldn't obtain the financial backing to develop it further. There was also resistance from existing rail companies who were understandably concerned about the railplane hitting their own profits. Plus, it is not perfect. For example, if you were to electrify the conventional lines, could you hang the wires underneath the railplane? Would that be safe? I guess that's feasible, but it's just one other thing to work out. And even though by design it already had the allocated space, you still needed to build a whole new set of infrastructure over existing and very active rail lines. So he needed a lot of money to get this done, and he just never got it. Also, what about tunnels? Are you gonna build a second tunnel above a tunnel? Bennie was pretty thorough in thinking out this concept, but it's not perfect, obviously. And his proposed line from Edinburgh to Glasgow wasn't built. By 1937, he was bankrupt, as he had financed most of the work on his own. The prototype wound up laying in a field until it was sold for scrap in 1956, while the line itself was cut up in the beginning of World War II, as there was an intense need for extra metal. Bennie himself died in relative obscurity in 1957, never realizing his dream. The Prop-Draisine from 1931. Okay, I gotta hear with you. Compared to pretty much every other design on this list, this is the one that is most likely to get somebody killed. That is what I'm saying. Why? No. There are so many problems with this. And I can say that even though there really isn't that much information about this blasted thing, but what we do know is that this was a propeller trolley built for a mining company in the Congo. Now, already I have a really big problem with this because that means it was operating on very small lines that probably went very close to where workers were walking. And you, in your infinite wisdom, are going to stick a propeller to this thing. Why would you ever think that this was wise? Oh yeah, to make it better, they have actually combined two different terrible decisions in this particular design, because this thing is equipped with pneumatic tires. Rubber pneumatic tires. Air on metal rails. That has literally never worked, not one time, ever. And I love the magnificent, just absolutely divine example of a propeller guard on it. Really? Really? You got an iron bar right in front of the propeller. Yeah, that'll protect people. Yeah, no one will ever get hit by the propeller that way. It'll be fine. That's good enough. Are you kidding me? Everything about this just screams disaster waiting to happen, but I honestly don't know if anything ever went wrong with it, because like I said, there just isn't that much information about this blasted thing. But based purely on that, we can assume that this design was not repeated. Schienenzeppelin, also from 1931. Yeah, this is probably the one everyone was waiting for, and like a few others on this list, I know I've talked about it before, but it's been a while so we can go over it again, as arguably this is the most refined version of the let's stick a propeller on a locomotive concepts. Construction on it actually began in 1929, it just wasn't tested till 31, and it was designed and developed by German aircraft engineer Franz Krukenberg. And when it was tested, it was indeed exceedingly fast. In fact, it still holds a speed record today for a petrol-powered land vehicle, as it did run on gasoline. The high speeds can be attributed to the fact that this was kind of ahead of the time in terms of aerodynamics, because it was designed like an aircraft, as you can see. It looks like the fuselage of a plane, so it was very aerodynamic and light. It was built of aluminum, and it only weighed about 20 tons, which if you know anything about locomotives is exceedingly light. And they would continue tinkering with it until at least 1939, changing out the prime mover, as well as giving it different kinds of propellers to try to improve it, but nothing ever made it feasible. Eventually, the Deutsche Reichsbahn Gesellschaft decided to work on something a bit more conventional, which led to the development of what was known as the Fliegende Hamburger, or Flying Hamburger, in 1933, though that's another story. But what was wrong with the Schienenzeppelin? Well, for one thing, it couldn't pull any additional cars behind it, so it could never actually be a train in the technical sense. It would only ever be the single rail car. This was mostly due to the position of the propeller. It also had significant problems going up steep gradients, as the flow would actually separate when full power was applied, so it needed an additional means of propulsion to compensate. Basically, it couldn't go up hills, which is a fairly major problem. Oh, yeah. Also, the relatively minor issue of having a propeller spinning at God knows how fast within spitting distance of a passenger platform where people are standing. All aboard the Wood Chipper Express, people, this was never going to work because it's obviously so hilariously dangerous. Even in the modern day, we struggle with convincing people not to get too close to dangerous, large pieces of equipment for their own safety. Do you mean to tell me that nobody, at any point, was gonna get just a little too close to this thing and get eviscerated as a result? I assure you, that would have happened at some point. You might say I have no faith in humanity, but I read a lot of history, and no, I don't, not in this case. Someone would have done that, eventually, and no one wanted to entertain that possibility, so the whole project was cancelled, and the Schienenzeppelin was scrapped in 1939. Though, for what it's worth, it was actually immortalized during the CGI era of Thomas the Tank Engine. They introduced a character named Hugo, who's based directly off of the Schienenzeppelin. Quite why Sir Topham Hatt thought it was a really good idea to allow the chainsaw railcar onto the island of Sodor, I do not know. Though I'll give him credit for this, they actually thought about this problem, and Hugo is fitted with a siren that he uses to warn people when his propeller is starting. Now, I don't consider that a perfect solution, but at least the writers and Thomas thought about that, so I'll give him that much. And with that, a special thank you goes to all my underwater train finders, Some Dude 267, Orange Glass, Benjamin Owens, Panzer Kitsune 131-232, Josh Johnson, Anzac A1, Arthur Roy, Tommy Rossini, Lord Captain Von Thrust III, Brian, Jack Carson's Roro Videos, Hayden DeGrow, Master of None, Lord Hoff 444, Mark Holding, Murder Drone Stall, A Person 723, DM Tribal Typhoon, Alfonso Lapuche, Ro Hudson 2860, Isurfer 1405, Charles Kwiatkowski, Matthew Wolf, Mr. Sleepy Matt Weaver, Alaric Jaspers, Tom Redlion, NS Productions 8104, Hannah Bird, Hendrick Motorsports Fan 5, Wheeljack 8401, Rescues Greyhounds, Dr. Racer 78, The Baxter, Caleb Crosswhite, Ohio Trucker 1, Joshua Long, Andrew Bowen, and Prez Drenton. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.